My husband, who went missing 3 years ago, came back with his true love. Pei Xiaoyuan looked indifferent, his tone icy. Everyone says you're my wife, but I don't remember you. Since I have no memory of it, it doesn't count. 1. Wronger saved me back then and bore my children. I absolutely cannot let her down. Today, I will give her the status of an equal wife. 1. I looked at Pei Xiaoyuan's arrogant face, suddenly took a step back, and shouted for the guards in a panic. Presumptuous! Where did this madman come from, daring to impersonate my husband who died on the battlefield? 1. Men, throw this swindler out. My husband is a loyal martyr posthumously honored by the imperial court. How can I allow others to defile his name? 1. Since you've forgotten, then never remember it. A dead, heroic husband is much more useful than a living deserter. The day Pei Xiaoyuan returned to the Marquise's manor, he was dressed in plain clothes, yet it was hard to conceal the arrogance between his brows. Behind him stood a shivering woman, holding a 2- or 3-year-old boy in her arms. The surroundings were crowded with commoners watching the commotion. Pei Xiaoyuan frowned, looking at me with a look of disgust. Jiangxiu, how long are you going to keep making a scene? I've already told you. I've lost my memory. I don't remember the past. 1. But it was Wronger who saved me these past 3 years. I owe her, so I must give her the position of equal wife. 1. The woman named Qin Man Rong, eyes brimming with tears, was about to kneel before me. Sister, 1,000 wrongs, 10,000 mistakes. It's all my fault. Please don't blame husband. As long as husband can come home, Wronger is willing to be a concubine, even a slave or a maid. 1. What a scene of deep love and devotion. If I were a resentful woman of the boudoir, right now I'd probably be crying my heart out, or forcing myself to swallow this bitter pill just for the sake of a virtuous reputation. Too bad, I am Jiang Xiu, the Jiangxiu who has managed the Marquis Manor for 3 years and tripled its assets. I stood on the steps, looking down at them from high above, and let out a cold laugh. Where did these lunatics come from, running to the entrance of the Marquis Manor to put on a show? 1. Pei Xiaoyuan's face turned dark. Jiangxiu, why are you playing dumb? I am Pei Xiaoyuan. I'm your husband. 1. I turned to look at the steward beside me. Steward? Where is my husband? The steward was a sharp one. He immediately bowed and spoke loudly. Replying to Madam, the Marquis died on the battlefield 3 years ago, leaving no remains. His spirit tablet is enshrined in the ancestral hall, receiving incense offerings from the entire clan, and His Majesty even personally bestowed the words, loyal and brave. 1. I nodded, my gaze sharp as a knife, stabbing straight at Pei Xiaoyuan. Did you hear that? My husband was a great hero. He's long gone. 1. You street ruffian, bringing along a shady woman and a bastard, yet you dare to impersonate a noble lord? I think you're tired of living. 1. Pei Xiaoyuan clearly didn't expect this reaction from me. In his impression, I should be that submissive fool who treats her husband as heaven and weeps with joy upon seeing him return. He was shaking with anger, pointing at my nose. Jiangxiu, you've got some nerve. I see you want to hog the Marquis Manor's family property. My appearance may have changed slightly, but this voice, this figure, don't tell me you can't recognize me? 1. Qin Menrong was also chiming in from the side, crying her heart out. Sister, husband was injured on the battlefield and has a scar on his face, but he really is the heir. How can you be so heartless as to not even recognize the man who shares your bed? 1. The onlookers started pointing fingers. After all, Pei Xiaoyuan's face, though a bit darker and with an added scar, was still 70 or 80% recognizable if an acquaintance looked closely. Someone whispered, "He really looks like Marquis Pei." Yeah, could it be that Madame Pei is afraid of the mistress entering the house, so she's deliberately refusing to recognize him? 1. Pei Xiaoyuan heard the change in the wind, and a look of smugness appeared on his face. He straightened his back and was about to barge in with large strides. "Get out of the way! I want to see Mother. Mother will surely recognize me." 1. I, however, didn't move a muscle, just lightly raised my hand. A dozen or so servants who had long been lying in wait behind the door rushed out with clubs in hand, swarming out to completely surround Pei Xiaoyuan and his two companions. Pei Xiaoyuan paused his steps, looking at me in disbelief. "You dare?" 1. I looked at him scornfully. Why wouldn't I? My husband was a hero who stood tall between heaven and earth, and he died with glory. To show compassion to the Marquise's manor, His Majesty not only bestowed gold and silver, but also granted me the title of Lady of the First Rank. Now, the entire Marquise household is a family of loyal martyrs, personally inscribed by the Emperor. I walked down the steps unhurriedly, staring straight into Pei Xiaoyuan's eyes, and lowered my voice to speak in a tone that only the two of us could hear. Pei Xiaoyuan, think this through clearly. If you come back alive, that is deceiving the Emperor. If you are dead, that is being a loyal martyr. Do you think His Majesty would prefer you alive or dead? Pei Xiaoyuan's pupils constricted violently. I straightened up and shouted, "Beat them! Beat them hard! Beat these scoundrels who are impersonating court officials to scam people out of here." 1. The servants had already received my reward money, so they showed no mercy with their strikes. The clubs fell like rain. Although Pei Xiaoyuan had some martial arts training, his body had long been hollowed out by 3 years in that land of tenderness. Plus, he had to protect Qin Manrong and the child. So after just a few hits, he was beaten into scurrying away like a rat with his head in his hands. "Jiang Shu, you venomous woman! I'm going to the authorities to sue you." Angjuan. Pei Xiaoyuan's noble air from moments ago vanished completely. Under the merciless blows of the sticks, he screamed as he was dragged onto the street by the servants like a dead dog. Qin Manrong screamed as she shielded the child. That originally exquisite hairbun was also beaten loose, looking utterly disheveled. I stood at the main gate, straightened my sleeves, and spoke loudly to the stunned commoners around. "Fellow neighbors, bear witness. People may look alike, but naturally I recognize my own husband. Today, this madman is impersonating my late husband, intending to confuse the bloodline of the Marquise manor. I, Zhang Shiyu, as the mistress of the Marquise manor, will absolutely not allow anyone to tarnish my late husband's good name. 1. If anyone dares to come swindling in the future, this is what awaits them. 1. Returning to the main hall, I drank a cup of tea, only then managing to suppress the nausea in my heart. At that time, I had just been diagnosed as pregnant. Hearing the news of Pei Xiaoyuan's death, the shock caused a miscarriage, and the baby didn't make it. Dragging my sick body, I spent my entire dowry bribing people high and low, just to retrieve his remains. But the result? My shadow guard found him in a small frontier town. He wasn't missing at all. Pei Xiaoyuan had become a deserter to save that Qin Manrong from the brothel, hiding his identity to live a blissful little life with her there. He used to despise me for being a stiff, old-fashioned woman from a noble family who didn't understand romance, complaining that the strict rules of the Marquise's manor were suffocating him. I thought it was all just angry talk, but he took advantage of that war to leave behind a corpse wearing his clothes, with his jade pendant on it. He himself had slipped away unnoticed, running off to chase his freedom and true love. The moment I learned the truth, my heart died. I burned everything related to him and calmly accepted the news of his death in battle. For these 3 years, I served my mother-in-law, managed the household, and propped up the Marquise's manor that was originally falling into ruin. Now that I'm living comfortably with money and power, he wants to come back and steal the fruits of my labor? Not a chance. Madam, the old madam sent someone to ask, saying she heard a commotion at the door. 1. My personal maid, Chuntao, reported cautiously. I sneered. Did the old madam hear a commotion? She heard someone calling for her son. That mother-in-law of mine is the greediest of all, and she spoils Pei Shaoyuan the most. If she knew Pei Shaoyuan was really back, even if he were a reanimated corpse, she would still take him in. I stood up and straightened my clothes. Let's go pay respects to Mother. When we arrived at Shoan Hall, the old madam was sitting on the daybed, turning her prayer beads, looking none too pleased. Yuer, I heard someone was causing a scene at the gate just now, claiming Shaoyuan is back. 1. The old lady's cloudy eyes stared at me, holding a hint of scrutiny. My expression didn't change as I walked behind her to massage her shoulders, a look of deep pain flashing in my eyes at just the right moment. Mother, Shaoyuan is dead. We saw it with our own eyes. They probably see our Marquis manor is flourishing now and want to run a scam. 1. The old lady frowned. But I heard the servant say that man looks extremely like Shaoyuan. 1. I pressed a little harder with my hands and said slowly, Mother, people can look alike, just as things can be the same. But in this world, there is absolutely no such thing as coming back from the dead. 1. Besides, Shaoyuan died for his country. That was stamped and sealed by the emperor. If he isn't dead, not only would our Marquis manor have to return the last 3 years of pension, we'd also be charged with the crime of deceiving the emperor. 1. At the mention of money, the old lady's body obviously stiffened. For the past 3 years, relying on rewards from the court and my management, her life has been much more comfortable than before. Bird's nest soup at every meal, new clothes every season. If Pei Shaoyuan comes back, all of this will go down the drain. Furthermore, faking death to be a deserter is punishable by the execution of 9 clans. That swindler even brought a woman who looks like she's from a brothel and a child, saying she's a mistress Shaoyuan set up on the outside. Inon 1. Mother, just think about it. Shaoyuan is such a filial child. If he were really alive, how could he possibly not send word home for 3 years? It must be that swindler heard some gossip somewhere and came to ruin Shaoyuan's reputation. Miurquains. The old lady stopped turning her prayer beads. Although my mother-in-law dotes on her son, she loves herself more, and she loves money even more. Besides, she must know deep down that with Pei Shaoyuan's character, if he were really living well out there, he definitely wouldn't remember his mother. Coming back now with his tail between his legs, he definitely ran out of money. The old madam stiffened, then started wiping away tears, putting on an act. My son was a hero. He died so miserably, and I just missed him so dearly. Fine, you deal with those people then. 1. The corners of my lips curled slightly. Mother is wise. To stop those scoundrels from coming to harass us again, I think we should hold another ritual for Shaoyuan, to proclaim to the world that the Marquis's manor is not to be bullied. 1. The old madam nodded. Just as I came out of Shoan Hall, the butler ran over in a hurry. Madam, that lunatic! He's beating the drum at the magistrate's court to cry injustice. 1. He says he is Pei Shaoyuan, and he's accusing you, madame, of murdering your husband and seizing the family assets. 1. My footsteps paused, and a glint of fierceness flashed in my eyes. Prepare the carriage. We're going to the government office. 1. beating the drum to cry injustice? I'd actually like to see how many lives he has to play with me. Outside the main hall of the government office, it was a sea of people. Pei Xiaoyuan knelt in the hall, his forehead wrapped in gauze. Qin Manrong knelt to the side holding a child, crying miserably. The magistrate sat high above in the hall, looking troubled. Dressed in formal attire, I walked slowly into the courtroom, but did not kneel. I am a lady of the first rank, personally conferred by the emperor. His Majesty exempted me from the etiquette of kneeling. When Pei Xiaoyuan saw me, the hatred in his eyes was almost overflowing. "My lord, it's this poisonous woman." She clearly recognized me, yet still ordered the servants to commit violence. She just wants to hog the family property and wants me dead. 1. The magistrate coughed once. "Madam Pei, is this true?" 1. I swept a faint glance at Pei Xiaoyuan. "My lord, scams are endless in this world. Since this person came prepared, naturally he has asked around for some information." 1. Pei Xiaoyuan roared, "R. Jiang Xiu. On our wedding night, I promised you a lifetime with just the two of us. Have you forgotten this too?" 1. I looked at him in astonishment, the corners of my mouth curling up in sarcasm. Back then, my husband and I had a very deep relationship. Who knows how many servants in the manor knew about this? 1. Besides, isn't what you're saying funny? My husband promised me just the two of us for a lifetime. Yet you came back with another woman. How do you expect me to believe you? 1. Pei Xiaoyuan was tongue-tied, his face flushing red. Wronger was my benefactor. I was repaying her kindness. 1. Repaying kindness means giving yourself to her? Repaying kindness means having children? Repaying kindness means abandoning your old mother and wife at home to live it up out there for 3 years? 1. My every word was a gem, forcing Pei Xiaoyuan to retreat step by step. You say you're Pei Xiaoyuan, who would believe that? 1. Pei Xiaoyuan got anxious. I have a red birthmark on my inner thigh. There was another commotion in the crowd. He even blurted out such a private matter. Looks like it's true. Qin Manrong also took the chance to cry. Sister, the mark on husband's body can't be faked. 1. The magistrate also looked at me, seemingly waiting for my explanation. I wasn't the least bit panicked, though. Instead, I sighed and looked at Pei Xiaoyuan with pity. My brave fellow, you really went to great lengths to impersonate my late husband. Nothing. It's a pity. You calculated everything, but you missed one thing. 1. I turned to face the magistrate and declared loudly, Your Honor, before my late husband went to war 3 years ago, he was injured falling from a horse. A chunk of flesh on his inner thigh was gouged right out, leaving a massive scar. Where would there still be a birthmark? 1. Pei Xiaoyuan froze. He had spent the last 3 years caring only for romantic dalliances. How could he remember what injuries he suffered before setting out for war? In fact, that fall from the horse was just a show he put on to avoid going to war. He didn't hurt his thigh at all, just scraped a bit of skin. But since I dared to say it, naturally I came prepared. The one who treated my late husband back then was Imperial Physician Li from the Imperial Hospital. If Your Honor doesn't believe me, feel free to summon Imperial Physician Li for questioning. 1. Pei Xiaoyuan panicked. You're talking nonsense. I never had that kind of injury at all. 1. I sneered. See? You don't even know whether you've been injured or not, yet you still dare to say you're Pei Xiaoyuan? Imperial Physician Li has records on file at the Imperial Hospital. 1. Actually, I had already tampered with those medical records at the Imperial Hospital long ago. These past 3 years, I used silver to pave the way, and it wasn't for nothing. Pei Xiaoyuan looked at my assured gaze, and he started to feel uneasy inside. He probably also remembered that he hadn't written a single letter home in these 3 years, so now that he's suddenly back, whatever I say goes. He gritted his teeth. Jiang Shu, you're really ruthless. The birthmark is gone, but my face can't be faked, right? Even if there are scars, surely the contours of my features aren't fake too. 1. Also, I can do a blood drip test. This child is my flesh and blood. As long as my blood mixes with the child's, it will prove that I am Pei Xiaoyuan. 1. This idiot actually coming up with a lousy trick like a blood drip test. Never mind that the dripping blood test isn't reliable to begin with. Even if it were, I could make it unreliable. But I didn't plan on tangling with him over this. What I want is for him to be completely ruined, with no chance of a comeback. Whether this child is your seed only proves you're this child's dad. How can it prove you're Pei Xiaoyuan? 1. What if you were just a vagrant to begin with, had a bastard, and came here to pull a scam? 1. Pei Xiaoyuan was so angry his eyes nearly popped out. Then I'll do a blood test with Mother. Whether I'm the Pei family's seed or not, one test will show. 1. I raised a brow. You want to see Mother? 1. Yes, I want to see Mother. Mother loves me the most. She would never be as vicious as you. 1. I nodded and turned to the magistrate. Your Honor, since this man won't shed a tear until he sees the coffin, then please invite the old madam to the court for a word. 1. Pei Xiaoyuan was overjoyed. But I was even more excited than him. The old madam was quickly invited to the court. Seeing his own mother, Pei Xiaoyuan's tears fell instantly. Mother, your son is back! Your son didn't die. 1. The old madam looked at the man kneeling on the ground with a face full of stubble, a complex emotion flashing through her eyes. She subconsciously shrank back, avoiding Pei Xiaoyuan's hand, and also avoiding his gaze, pleading for help. Pei Xiaoyuan froze. Mother, don't you recognize me? I'm Xiaoyuan. Look, this is the scar your son got from falling while climbing a tree when he was naughty as a child. 1. He pointed to an old scar on his temple, desperately trying to prove himself. The old madam's hands were trembling. That was the son she had carried for 10 months. She would recognize him even if he turned to ash. I glanced at her lightly and silently mouthed the words, "Loyal martyr." Right now, the Marquis Manor's glory and wealth all hinge on loyalty and martyrdom. If she acknowledges this son, not only will she have to cough up the silver the imperial court gave her these past 3 years, but she will also face the crime of deceiving the emperor. More importantly, this son is back, bringing back a mistress and a child. And I, this money tree, won't let this slide either. The old madam looked at me. I stood to the side, my expression indifferent, just gently adjusting that priceless top-grade jade button on my cuff. That was last month. I specially sought it out in the south to honor her. For the past 3 years, I let her get used to an extravagant life, precisely to prevent something like this today. It's easy to go from frugality to luxury, but hard to go from luxury to frugality. The old madam closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened them again, the affection in her eyes was gone, leaving only cold resolve. She raised the cane in her hand, slammed it hard on the ground, pointed at Pei Xiaoyuan, and cursed angrily. Where did this scoundrel come from, daring to impersonate my son? Pei Xiaoyuan froze on the spot, his mouth gaping wide, unable to make a sound for a long while. The old madam turned her head away, no longer looking at him, and cupped her hands toward the prefect. "My lord, I may be old, but my eyes are not blind. My son Shaoyuan died on the battlefield 3 years ago. I personally chose the coffin his remains were placed in." Chapter 1. Although this man bears some resemblance to my son, his aura is wretched and his manners are vulgar. He is absolutely not the heir of my marquise's manor. Qin. "Mother, I am Shaoyuan. I am your most beloved Shaoyuan." 1. Pei Shaoyuan broke down crying and tried to step forward to pull at her. The old madam stepped back in disgust and shouted sternly, "Shut up! My son is an indomitable hero. How could he be compared to a rat like you? You keep claiming to be my son. So where have you been these past 3 years? Why didn't you come home? Why did you wait until now to bring a bastard back to divide the family property?" 1. Your Honor, this is simply sheer nonsense. 1. Pei Shaoyuan was completely dumbfounded. Qin Manrong was also scared witless, curling up into a ball while holding the child. Suddenly, Pei Shaoyuan turned to look at me. His eyes filled with resentment and malice. "It's you, Zhang Shiyu. Surely you fed Mother some bewitching potion. It was you who forced Mother to say this, right?" 1. I looked coldly at him, barking wildly like a mad dog. "Pei Shaoyuan, things have come to this, yet you still don't know how to repent." 1. I walked up to him, lowered my voice, and spoke in a tone only he could hear. "Your life is a disaster for the Marquise's manor. Your death is the Marquise's manor's glory. Since you abandoned us for this woman, then please, die a little more thoroughly." 1. After saying that, I straightened up and bowed to the prefect. "Your Honor, this man is impersonating a court official and disrupting the court. I ask Your Honor to punish him severely according to the law." 1. The prefect slammed his gavel. "You audacious scoundrel! Witnesses and material evidence are all present. Even old Madame Gu says you are a fake. What else do you have to say?" 1. Guards, drag him down, give him 50 heavy strokes, parade him through the streets, and drive him out of the capital. 1. Pei Shaoyuan was pinned to the ground by the yamen runners, and the board came down heavily. Screams echoed through the courtroom. The old lady turned around shakily, not daring to look at that scene of flying flesh and blood. I held her arm and said softly, "Mother, don't be afraid. Your daughter-in-law is here. Let's go home." 1. Walking out of the government office gate, the sunlight was blinding. Behind were Pei Shaoyuan's despairing howls and the sounds of the commoners spitting and cursing. My mood, however, was incredibly light. In the carriage back to the manor, the old madam kept shivering. She clutched that string of prayer beads tightly in her hand, muttering words, not knowing if she was praying for Buddha's blessing or repenting. She suddenly grabbed my hand, her voice dry and hoarse, the rims of her eyes red. Am I being too cruel? That's my own flesh and blood, after all. 1. I glanced at that exquisite full-green jade bangle on her wrist, held her hand back, my tone gentle. Mother, you are doing this for the ancestors of the Pei family, for the lives of the hundreds of people in our Marquis manor. Shaoyuan has been filial since childhood. He won't fail to understand your painstaking efforts. 1. Just think about it. If the news of Shaoyuan returning alive is confirmed, that represents the capital crime of deceiving the emperor. When that time comes, let alone this bracelet and carriage, even the gates of our Marquis manor will be sealed up. At your age, do you really want to go kneel at the vegetable market to face punishment? 1. The old madam shuddered violently, and that trace of pity in her eyes vanished instantly. She took a deep breath, as if hypnotizing herself. My son Shaoyuan is a hero, a great hero, who died on the battlefield long ago. Chen 1. I smiled with satisfaction and took out a box of freshly made bird's nest pastries from a hidden compartment. Mother, you've suffered a fright for the Marcus Manor. This is made from a recipe leaked from the Imperial kitchen. Have a taste to calm your nerves. 1. The old lady took the pastry and wolfed down a couple of bites. She loved money, but she also cherished her life. As long as I don't fall, the Marcus Manor's glory and wealth remain, and she will forever be the high and mighty old matriarch. Upon returning to the manor, I immediately ordered the butler to send someone to keep an eye on Pei Shaoyuan, especially the ruined temples outside the city, beggars' dens and the like. If there's any movement, report back immediately. The butler took the order and left. I sat in the grand armchair, picked up the teacup, and gently skimmed off the froth. Right now, Pei Shaoyuan is probably still enduring those 50 strokes of the disciplinary baton, his skin torn and flesh split open. His sweetheart is likely at the scene, too. I'd really like to see just how much this so-called true love is worth in the face of hunger and pain. 3 days later, the steward said they were found. Those two didn't go far. They're right in a broken-down earth god temple in the west of the city. The man is injured badly, running a high fever, and can't walk. The woman pawned some of her jewelry to buy a few packets of medicine, and is currently boiling the medicine while crying. 1. The broken temple in the West City. That's a gathering place for beggars and refugees, stinking to high heaven. I put down the ledger in my hand, a faint smile curling on my lips. As a lady of the first rank, our Marquis Manor has always been charitable. Nowadays, there are many refugees outside the city. I'll go take a look, counting it as accumulating merit for my late husband. 1. As soon as the Marquis Manor's porridge shed was set up, a long line formed immediately. Dressed in plain white brocade with a moon-white cape draped over it, I stood before the porridge shed, looking just like a living bodhisattva saving the suffering. Madame Pei is such a great philanthropist. 1. Marquis Pei's spirit in heaven will surely bless you, madame. E. I wore a smile and signaled the maids to distribute steamed buns and hot porridge. My gaze, however, cut through the crowd and landed on that gloomy corner not far away. Pei Shaoyuan was lying prone on a pile of rotten straw, covered in filth and emitting a foul stench. Those 50 strokes had beaten him until his skin split and flesh burst. The wounds hadn't been treated properly and had already started to fester. He was burning up, his face flushed red, mumbling indistinctly. Qin Manrong sat to the side. Her originally fair face was covered in grime, and that outfit of silks and satins had long since turned into tattered rags. She held a broken bowl in her hands, eyeing the porridge shed over here longingly. That child was wailing from hunger, its voice hoarse. Wronger, water. 1. Pei Shaoyuan called out weakly. But Qin Manrong seemed not to hear, just staring fixedly at that steaming hot bun. She hesitated for a long time, but finally couldn't stand the hunger. She dumped the child next to Pei Shaoyuan, got up, and squeezed her way toward the porridge shed. The Qin Manrong, who used to be so dainty in front of Pei Shaoyuan that she couldn't even walk steadily, was now shoving desperately among a crowd of beggars for a bite to eat. Give me one. With disheveled hair, she reached out her hand. Her fingernails were packed with black grime. Chuntao was in charge of giving out the porridge and recognized her at a glance. Yo, isn't this concubine Chin who wanted to bash her head in at the Marquis Manor's gate? 1. Chuntao's voice was shrill, deliberately shouting so everyone around could hear. What? Marquis Pei didn't take you to live the high life, but instead you came to beg from us? 1. Chin Manrong was so ashamed and furious she wanted to die, her face turning the color of pig liver. The surrounding beggars roared with laughter. Is this the mistress of that swindler who impersonated the Marquis? 1. She actually has some looks. How did she end up with a swindler? Tian'er 1. But hunger overcame shame, and she gritted her teeth, saying, I came to get porridge. Doesn't your Marquis manner say that all beings are equal? 1. I walked over slowly and stood in front of her. Even from 2 steps away, I could smell that sour stench on her. I said indifferently, all beings are indeed equal, but here with me, swindlers are excluded. 1. Chin Manrong abruptly looked up at me, her eyes full of jealousy and hatred. Jiang Xiu, don't go too far. Xiaoyuan is running a high fever right now. If anything happens to him, you're the murderer. Murder? 1. As I covered my mouth and nose with a handkerchief in disgust. Hey, Auntie, you can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. My husband is enshrined in the ancestral hall. As for that one over there, he's just a swindler who hasn't died yet. 1. After speaking, I took out an ingot of silver from my sleeve. A full 10 tals. It shone with an alluring luster under the sunlight. Chin Manrong's eyes instantly went straight. I tossed the silver up and down in my hand and said casually, I don't give porridge to swindlers, but I've always been soft-hearted. Here are 10 taels of silver, enough for you to find a doctor, have a full meal, and even hire a carriage to leave the capital. 1. Chin Manrong instinctively reached out to snatch it. I pulled my hand back, smiling enigmatically. However, I have a condition. 1. Chin Manrong swallowed hard, staring intently at that silver. What conditions? 1. I pointed at Pei Xiaoyuan lying in the pile of rotten hay, then pointed at the wailing child beside her, my voice full of temptation. This silver can only save one person. 1. You can take it to treat his illness and be a loyal, righteous woman, or you can take the silver, take the child, and leave. 10 taels of silver, if you spend it carefully, is enough for you to buy 2 mu of land in the countryside and raise the child. 1. Chin Manrong froze. She turned back to look at Pei Xiaoyuan. This man who once promised her wealth and glory, who abandoned everything for her, was now paralyzed there, his dignity completely lost. After a long while, Chin Manrong's gaze began to waver. Pei Xiaoyuan seemed to sense something. Exerting all his strength to open his eyes, he shouted hoarsely, Wronger, don't believe that poisonous woman's lies. Take me away. I am the heir. I will make it up to you and the child in the future. 1. I looked at him in surprise. Pei Xiaoyuan, you can't even crawl up right now. What are you going to compensate with? With that mouth of yours that only knows how to lie? 1. I held the silver out towards Chin Manrong again and said gently, Have you made up your mind? If you miss this chance, there won't be another. Chin Manrong reached out a trembling hand. Under Pei Xiaoyuan's gaze of disbelief, she snatched that silver ingot, clutching it deathly tight in her palm, gripping it until her knuckles turned white. Pei Xiaoyuan's eyes were splitting with rage. He struggled to get up, but aggravated his wound, letting out a wretched scream as he fell back down. Chin Manrong didn't dare look at him, simply holding the child tight as she kowtowed to me. Then she got up, picked up the child, and ran in the opposite direction without looking back. She didn't even spare Pei Xiaoyuan a glance. Wronger, Chin Manrong. You bitch! Come back here! Pei Xiaoyuan roared in despair, his hands clawing at the mud on the ground, fingernails snapping, dripping with blood. I walked up to Pei Xiaoyuan and looked down at him. He was lying on the ground, his face covered in tears and dirt. his eyes empty, as if his soul had been sucked out. "How is it? Pei Shaiyuan, does your heart ache?" 1. My voice was soft, yet it pierced his heart like a knife. When I heard the news that you had run off with her back then, it hurt even more than this. 1. Pei Shaiyuan slowly raised his head, his eyes full of red streaks, gritting his teeth. "Are you satisfied? You forced Ronger away and cost me everything. I won't let you off even if I become a ghost." I sneered. "Don't pin everything on me. I just gave her a choice. If she really loved you more than her life, she could have thrown the silver in my face, or taken it to buy you medicine." 1. Too bad, she chose the money and she chose herself. Looks like your true love isn't all that great. 1. Pei Shaiyuan's body trembled violently, and he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. During these 3 years of running and hiding, he couldn't possibly not have sensed Qin Manrong's vanity and complaints. It was just that he didn't want to admit it. Admitting it would mean admitting that his sacrifices over these 3 years were a complete mistake. Admitting that he was a big fool who threw away a pearl to pick up a fisheye. Now, that fig leaf has been completely torn away by me. Dripping with blood, pain piercing the heart. I squatted down, looking at his wretched face, and whispered, "Actually, I still have to thank her. If she hadn't taken you away, how could I have taken full control and lived such a carefree life as I do now? Pei Shaiyuan, to repay you, I'll have people leave you with a breath of life." 1. After all, letting you die just like this would be letting you off too easy. 1. I stood up and patted the non-existent dust off the hem of my skirt. "Steward, leave 2 steamed buns for this beggar. Don't let anyone say our Marquis Manor lacks charity." 1. As for whether he can survive, that depends on his luck. 1. I turned and left, the desperate howling of Pei Shaiyuan coming from behind me like a wild beast. Qin Manrong ran off with the silver, and Pei Shaiyuan was left completely alone. But he was tough. He didn't die. Perhaps it was hatred holding him up, or perhaps he still fantasized that one day he could turn the tables. He scraped by in the beggar's den, surviving on begging and picking up leftover food. And I continued to be the glamorous madam of the Marquis Manor. But I knew, if you cut the weeds without removing the roots, they will grow back in the spring wind. Especially someone like Pei Shaiyuan. If you don't completely break his spine, he'll always be thinking about biting someone. Half a month later, news came from Wanhua Tower. They said there was a new top courtesan who brought a child with her. Not only did she look pitiful and lovely, but her singing was also superb, making countless patrons fall over themselves for her. That courtesan's name was Qin Yue. But I knew. That was Qin Manrong. 10 tells of silver, in a place like the capital, wouldn't last more than a few days. She couldn't handle hardship, and she had a child with her. Returning to her old trade was only a matter of time. I specifically had someone accidentally leak this news to Pei Shaiyuan in the beggar's den. That day, Pei Shaiyuan acted like a madman. He dragged his broken leg, inching along step by step, and crawled to the back door of Wanhua Tower. Coincidentally, that day Qin Manrong was coming out of the back door with a wealthy merchant, getting ready to go boating on the lake. She was decked out, her face plastered with thick powder, smiling with overflowing flirtatiousness. The child had been left with the madam to watch over, and wasn't with her at all. Wronger, 1. Pei Shaiyuan rushed out from the shadows and grabbed the hem of Qin Manrong's skirt. Qin Manrong screamed in fright, but once she saw clearly that the demon-like man was Pei Shaiyuan, the terror in her eyes instantly turned into disgust. "Where did this stinking beggar come from? Piss off, don't dirty my skirt." 1. She kicked Pei Shaiyuan in the chest. Pei Xiaoyuan was kicked over onto the ground, looking at her in disbelief. Wronger, it's me. I'm Xiaoyuan. 1. Qin Manrong sneered. Now that she had a wealthy merchant as a backer, she was emboldened. Pei Xiaoyuan is long dead. You're nothing but a wanted criminal. You're trash. Do you have any idea how much I've suffered being with you these past 3 years? I used to be the top girl at Wanhua Tower. If I hadn't gone with you, I would have saved enough to buy my freedom and become a main wife by now. It's you who ruined me. 1. Qin Manrong got angrier as she spoke, grabbing the round fan in her hand and smashing it onto Pei Xiaoyuan's head. What are you coming to find me for now? Want me to support you? Dream on! The wealthy merchant beside her covered his nose and said impatiently, Ruyan, who is this? He stinks. 1. Qin Manrong immediately switched to a delicate, coquettish smile and linked arms with the merchant. The two of them got into the carriage, chatting and laughing, then sped away, leaving only Pei Xiaoyuan lying alone in the muddy water, watching the carriage disappear, letting out a heart-wrenching, maniacal laugh. Laughing and laughing, he started crying. Just then, a pair of exquisite embroidered shoes stopped in front of him. I held an oil paper umbrella, shielding him from the scorching sun overhead. Pei Xiaoyuan, you look like a dog. 1. Pei Xiaoyuan jerked his head up, looking at the glamorous me, then looked at himself covered in mud. At this moment, his pride completely crumbled. Pei Xiaoyuan kept kowtowing, his forehead hitting the bluestone slabs with loud thuds. Jiang Shiyu, kill me. Please kill me. 1. I gave a faint smile, took a dagger from my sleeve, and threw it in front of him. Wanna die? Easy. But if you just die like this, Qin Manrong will take the money you sold your life for, live it up in the brothel, and in the future take that bastard, claiming it's your flesh and blood, to swindle money from others. 1. Are you willing to accept that? Pei Xiaoyuan looked at the dagger on the ground, and the dead ashes in his eyes reignited, turning into a raging fire of hatred. He wasn't resigned. He hated Qin Manrong 10,000 times more than he hated me. I turned around, leaving behind a few light words. I heard that tonight Qin Manrong is going to spend the night with that Master Wang on the boat. That Master Wang loves playing rough, and the boat isn't heavily guarded. Who knows? Maybe if they see your kung fu, everyone will believe you're Pei Xiaoyuan again. 1. Behind me, Pei Xiaoyuan's hand trembled as he slowly grasped that dagger. That night, the banks of the Qinhuai River were ablaze with lights, filled with song and dance. I rented a painted pleasure boat, located just not far from Master Wang's boat, leisurely sipping Yuqian Longjing. Chuntao was a bit nervous, glancing out the window from time to time. Madam, does he really dare to make a move? 1. I blew on the tea foam, my expression indifferent. If a person has even their last shred of dignity trampled to pieces, then he is no longer human, but a ghost. A vengeful ghost claiming a life. What wouldn't he dare do? 1. As soon as the words fell, a blood-curdling scream suddenly rang out from a flower boat not far away. Immediately after came the loud crash of tables and chairs overturning and porcelain shattering, along with the terrified screams of women. Murder! Murder! 1. Someone come quickly. A mad beggar killed someone. 1. The river instantly fell into chaos. I put down my teacup, walked to the window, and watched the chaos over there across the shimmering waves. Through the swaying shadows of the lamp, I vaguely saw a figure covered in blood, straddling a woman, the dagger in his hand coming down again and again. Master Wang's guards finally snapped out of it and swarmed forward, their clubs raining down on the man. But he seemed to feel no pain. Even as he was beaten until his bones snapped and he spat blood, that hand still clutched the dagger deathly tight. It wasn't until he swallowed his last breath that he fell limply onto that bloody, mangled woman. It was Pei Xiaoyuan and Qin Manrong. When he was alive, he said he wanted to spend his whole life with her as a devoted couple and to share the same grave in death. Now, he has actually gotten his wish. Early the next morning, the capital exploded into an uproar, and every street and alley was discussing last night's gruesome case. They say Qin Yue, the new top courtesan at Wanhua Tower, was entertaining a guest when a crazy beggar barged in. The beggar didn't want money either. He just came up and started stabbing, every strike fatal. In the end, both of them died. It's said that when the beggar died, his eyes were still staring wide open and couldn't be closed no matter what. The authorities came to examine the bodies, but they couldn't determine the beggar's identity because his face had already been beaten to a pulp and he didn't have any identifying tokens on him. To close the case quickly, the prefect ruled it as a vagrant going mad and committing violence. But as a warm-hearted, titled lady, I still made a trip to the mortuary. The morgue was gloomy, cold, and damp. 2 bodies lay side by side, covered with white cloths. I had the coroner lift a corner of the white cloth. Pei Xiaoyuan's face, once handsome but now completely unrecognizable, was revealed. He died a gruesome death. There wasn't a single good bone left in his entire body. But I didn't feel a single ripple in my heart. "Madam, do you recognize this beggar?" "One," the coroner asked cautiously. I took out a handkerchief to cover my mouth and nose, shaking my head in disgust. "I don't recognize him. I just heard that this beggar caused a scene at the gate of the Marquis Manor before committing the crime, so I came to take a look." "1. Since he's dead, drag him to the mass grave and bury him. As for this woman, she's a pitiful soul too. If no one claims the body, toss her into the mass grave along with him. 1. Enemies in life, neighbors in death. I suppose that counts as a kind of fate. 1. After Qin Manrong died, the madam considered that child bad luck and was just planning to sell him to human traffickers. Although that was Pei Xiaoyuan's seed, the young child was innocent. I didn't have the heart to kill a 3-year-old child, but I certainly wasn't saint enough to take him back to the Marquis' manor and raise a tiger to invite calamity. I had the steward spend a few taels of silver to buy the child from the madam. Then I sent people to take him to an orphanage thousands of miles away. That was a remote small town in the south, with beautiful scenery, but separated from the capital by thousands of mountains and rivers. I gave the orphanage a sum of money, enough for the child to grow up safely, learn a trade, and become an ordinary farmer or craftsman. He won't know his origins, nor will he know how his parents died so tragically. He will live out his life as an ordinary person, plainly and simply. This is also the last bit of mercy I leave for the Pei family. I took a deep breath. From now on, there will be no heir Pei in this world, nor Mistress Qin. Only the loyal martyr Pei Xiaoyuan, who died in battle and is enshrined in the Marquis Manor's ancestral hall, will live forever in people's reverence. And I, carrying this glory and the wealth of the Marquis Manor, will live out my life as a wealthy idler. Back at the manor, I went to Shoan Hall. The old madam has been ill these past 2 days. I heard it was from fright. After hearing the news that the mad beggar killed someone that day, she fell bedridden with illness, having nightmares all night long. I held the medicine bowl, sat by the bed, and gently blew on the liquid medicine in the spoon to cool it. "Mother, drink your medicine." 1. The old madam opened her eyes, saw it was me, and a trace of fear flashed through her eyes. She opened her mouth tremblingly. "Xiaoyuan, he is really gone?" 1. I fed her a mouthful of medicine, my movements gentle to the extreme. Mother, what nonsense are you talking about? Shoyuan left 3 years ago. The one who died last night was just a mad beggar, that's all. 1. The old madam stared into my eyes for a long time, finally lowering her gaze dejectedly. I was mistaken. She obediently opened her mouth to drink the medicine, not daring to spill a single drop. I smiled with satisfaction and tucked in the corners of her quilt. Mother, just rest easy and enjoy your old age. As long as you are well, the Marquis Manor will be well, and our wealth and glory will last for a long, long time. 1. The old madam nodded repeatedly. I'll listen to you on everything. From now on, you make all the decisions for this family. 1. From then on, the old madam completely handed over the power of household management, eating vegetarian meals and praying to Buddha in Xuan Hall, never asking about the manor's affairs again. I was also happy to enjoy the peace and quiet. A year later, the imperial court dispensed rewards for meritorious service. In remembrance of Marquis Pei's loyalty and martyrdom, they bestowed further titles upon the Marquis Manor. I became the most noble woman in the capital. When I have nothing to do, I sit in the garden pavilion, gazing at the spring scenery filling the garden, and drink a pot of good tea. Occasionally, when someone mentions that crazy beggar who caused a scene at the Marquis's, I close my eyes, enjoying the tranquility that belongs only to the victor. As for Pei Shaoyuan, since he's forgotten, then let him never remember. Along with that ridiculous vow, let them rot together in the mud.